stab wound in the left side of her neck. Oh my God.
Her identity is unknown. It's not only a whodunit, it's a who is it.
As the investigation heats up, a terrifying pattern emerges.
There are 3 homicides under investigation in less than 10 days.
Let's go, man!
Could this be the same guy? Yeah, it could.
If that is so, we got a serial killer on our hands.
1099 on South Wasatch.
And detectives discover they're dealing with pure evil.
You on occasion have to make a deal with the devil. That's how this works. When you identify someone who is an emotionless animal who kills because he likes it, we need to do something about him. Period. The end.
It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. John Hudson is just getting home from a night out.
He lived in a trailer park on the south end of Colorado Springs.
And all of a sudden, he notices his back porch light is on.
When he looked out the back door, he saw somebody laying on the steps.
Really?
And he's a little bit irritated because, he wants to get to bed.
Come on. Hey, man, you gotta do this. Too late.
And to his horror, there's a woman covered in blood, and her eyes are wide open.
Oh my God.
He runs to call 911, but it's too late.
In the days of 1975, I'd been employed as a policeman for 2 years. I was 27 years old. I was working in the west side of the city of Colorado Springs as a sector officer. You're assigned to a specific geographic zone within the city.
Dispatch to all units. We have a possible 1099 on South Wasatch. All units in District 7, please respond.
In 1975, a homicide was at 1099, but it wasn't in my part of town, so I wasn't permitted to go there. I wanted to go there so bad I could taste it.
Report of a female victim discovered. I repeat, all units in District 7, please respond.
When I heard that call that night, I had no clue, nor did anyone else, that it would become one of the most infamous cases in the history of Colorado Springs.
Within minutes, investigators respond to the trailer park at 1000 South Wasatch.
It's an older area, south of downtown.
The area would be considered somewhat run down.
Hey, thank you. Detective Smith, good to see you.
Officer, so what are we looking at here?
The detective assigned to the case was Lou Smith, and he responded to that scene.
It's a bad one. In fact, it's probably one of the worst I've ever seen.
Show me.
It's right.
Smith was a brilliant detective. He got more confessions than anybody. They couldn't have found a better guy to pursue this case than Lou Smith.
Oh my God.
Smith looks at this victim. She's white female in her early 20s. She's covered in blood, and she has this gaping neck wound.
Her hair was matted in blood and dirt, and there was blood all over the porch. This was a brutal attack, very savage.
Look at those handprints.
The blood marks on the door frame indicate that she was approximately 2 inches away from ringing the bell. Would that have mattered? No, it wouldn't have. She would not have survived that injury if there was a surgeon living in that trailer.
Any purse or ID found?
No, sir.
Okay, let's expand the search here and get a good canvas going. Now let's get the coroner down here and move the body. Nobody else needs to see that.
Yes, sir. Also, Assistant District Attorney Chuck Heim, he's asking to see you.
Great, send him over.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
I met Chuck Heim and worked with him on many occasions after that event. I found him to be one of the finest prosecutors I've ever seen.
Hey, Chuck.
If he is your adversary, you're dealing with a king cobra.
Let's see what we got going on here. All right. It was office policy that the assistant DA be notified of any homicide that occurred within the 4th Judicial District. My role was to coordinate our office with the Colorado Springs Police Department and work with the different detectives on anything that they might need.
Pardon the interruption, gentlemen. You just found a significant amount of blood.
Let's go, Chuck.
The investigators follow a trail of blood to where it begins, 50 yards away.
This must be where the attack happened. And look at these tire tracks.
Looks like there must be a getaway car.
It's likely she steps out of that car, either already wounded or is attacked outside the car. She then tries to seek help, and the perpetrator flees in the car in question.
Let's rope this place off and look for a murder weapon.
Will do.
You said the trailer owner is the one that called us in?
Yes, sir. John Hudson is his name. Last I saw him, he was sitting on the steps on his front porch.
Okay.
He's the last person to see her before the police got there and started their investigation.
Is it possible that she knew him?
John, I'm Detective Schmidt. I understand this trailer is yours.
Yeah, I don't even want to go back inside. I feel sick.
I understand.
He's 28 years of age. He is very, very distressed.
Could you walk me through your night?
I had just gotten home when I saw her on the steps. I thought some drunk or bum had passed out. Then I saw all the blood.
You know her? You ever see her before?
No, sir. I know everyone in this trailer park, and she ain't one of them.
Yes, Mr. Hudson, have you seen any suspicious activity this evening, or seen anybody in the area that you've not seen before?
Now that you mention it, when I was on my way out, I heard this weird clanking noise, and here's this guy riding a bicycle with a busted pedal. Just odd for someone to be out here that late at night.
People don't have to be instructed on what looks suspicious. You just feel it. It's human nature.
Did you get a good look at him?
Yeah, he wasn't going real fast. Young fella, white t-shirt and jeans, curly hair.
Okay, John. We'll get in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Poor kid.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. The sun should be showing her face here in about half an hour or so. So let's...
And he heard a clanking noise. When he looked, it was a young guy on a bicycle.
There he is. White t-shirt, blue jeans, and a clanking pedal. It's the middle of the night. You're out here riding a bike?
Hey, kid, get over here.
Right away, you're suspicious of this guy. He was seen prior to the murder, and now he's seen after the body has been found. We need to talk to him and find out what he can tell us about this.
What's going on?
What are you doing out here, son? What's your name?
Alex Calzado. I was just on my way to get some beer.
You went out to get a beer at this hour?
Mr. Calzado is nervous, and he's acting oddly, and his body language is very resistive.
Is it because he's involved in this murder? Could be.
Look, man, I don't want any trouble. I'll just get out your way.
Sit tight.
So Lou calls the police headquarters and said, run this guy's name for me and see what you can tell me. And the dispatcher came back right away.
We've got an A. Calzado listed here, active warrant for assault with a deadly weapon.
What type of weapon?
A knife.
You're not going anywhere, kid.
So Alex now has even more explaining to do than he had 2 minutes ago. Who are you, Alex? And what the hell are you doing here?
Oh, my God.
Lou Smith's assigned to investigate the violent homicide of a young female who is unidentified. And a suspicious person, Alex Calzado, has been observed in the area.
Not so fast.
He's wanted on a warrant involving the use of a knife. And he's brought into police headquarters for further investigation.
I was with my buddy Jose all night. The only time I left was to get more beer. I swear.
Alex tells Smith that he has no knowledge of a killing. He didn't kill anybody.
So you're telling me you went on a 5 a.m. beer run right next to a murder scene?
It's the truth. You can ask my friends. You can ask the store clerk.
Check it out.
Well, you want to look into his alibi, so Lou did that.
Checks out.
And that alibi checked out. He had been home all night with his friends.
The gas station is where he was buying beer, and it's open 24 hours a day, and the clerk remembers him and remembers the timeline. So he's dismissed as a suspect.
All right. Get him out.
So Mr. Alex Calzado is arrested on a warrant for assault with a deadly weapon, but he's not involved in this killing.
Detective Smith, we're ready for you down at the morgue.
Thanks. Go for a ride?
Let's do it.
Hoping the autopsy will produce a new lead, the investigators head down to the morgue to talk to Dr. Urich.
Hey, Doc.
How are you?
You making any progress here?
I think I may have found a few things that'll interest you. Take a look. Cause of death was that gash there. Severed the carotid artery and she bled out.
She had the deep stab wound in the left side of her neck, like somebody tried to cut her throat.
Any idea what type of knife they did?
It's hard to say. Whoever did it knew what they were doing, though. The placement of that cut is almost strategic.
He also said that he found 4 additional stab wounds in her back.
Attacked from the back? They didn't see it coming.
I'd say that's a safe conclusion.
Dr. Urich finds defensive wounds in her left hand. She tried to stop the blade at some point during this confrontation.
Also, you should know there's some signs of sexual activity.
So you think she was raped?
Couldn't say for sure.
There were semen traces on her pants. Does that mean they were placed there at the time this occurred? There's no way to know that. They were present. That's all Dr. Urich can say.
Hey, Doc.
Oh, one other thing. I found this in her front pocket.
He was unable to find any type of identification, but he did find 1 golden key in her jeans pocket.
There's no telling what this key opens. Hopefully this will lead us somewhere, because so far we have nowhere to go.
I think we got something here.
We have a dead girl whose identity is unknown. It's not only a whodunit, it's a who is it.
Hey, you got any witnesses?
Stodgy at best. I'm still asking around, but, hey, Lou, how's your case coming along?
When Detective Smith returned to the police department, he met with 2 other detectives who were also working homicide cases.
Not so good. I got a Jane Doe and I got a trailer park full of people that want answers.
It's a very common thing in homicide investigations for detectives to share information. I always tried to learn as much as I could without being obnoxious about it or even obvious. I listened and paid attention.
Can you believe we got 3 people killed in less than 10 days?
It's just terrible.
That's extremely unusual in 1975 in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Concern begins to build that there's something more to this.
Keep me posted.
You bet.
Excuse me, Detective Schmidt? I couldn't help but overhear just now. Do you think these murders are connected?
It's too soon to tell. The motives are all different. We have drugs, we have robbery, we have a possible sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
When Smith has these conversations about these other 2 killings, there's no real connection to them other than the level of violence and the proximity of days. Could this be the same guy doing these crimes for different reasons? Yeah, it could.
If that is so, we got a serial killer on our hands.
A serial killer is a different breed of cat. He considers what he's doing over a period of time. It's not a single event, it's a series of events.
We need to find him before he strikes again.
Sounds like you got your work cut out for you.
Can you keep an ear out on patrol?
Oh, I will, sir. You can count on that.
Oh, thanks, Kenda.
Lou Smith had an innate ability to reach people, never objected to the fact I was a rookie. He was very accepting. You're one of the brotherhood now. And I always liked him. He's a remarkable guy.
Back in his office, Detective Smith tries another tactic for soliciting new information.
You've got a lot of pressure on you when you're assigned a case like this. So it would not be uncommon to then call a press release.
Okay, this should do it. Let's get some copies and get KOA on the line.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
When I was in television, we would be talking to the police department several times a day on the phone. Their information officer would, set up an interview with us with one of the detectives.
We are very careful when we release information to the press.
We're asking anyone who may have any information to call the Colorado Springs Police Department immediately.
Detective!
The only information we'd provide about this girl is her physical appearance. How tall is she? What does she weigh? What color's her hair? What's color her eyes? And her clothing. That's it.
Detective, do you believe she was murdered? Do you have any suspects?
That's all I have for right now.
Detective!
As news of the murder spreads, the CSPD is inundated with tips from the public.
There's a natural built-in problem where people are absolutely convinced that it's their cousin, it's their sister, it's their aunt, it's their lifelong friend, and you wind up chasing down a number of false leads.
Okay, well, I'm glad you found her. Take care now.
Any luck?
Afraid another dead end.
Detective, I've got a woman up front, says she needs to talk to you.
What is this today? The ninth walk-in? Oh, I better go see if I can roll this one out. Could you sit in my office?
Yes, sir.
Good.
One of the tips that came in was a gal named Jenny Erickson.
Hi there. What brings you down here today?
I heard about that girl who was killed the other day.
No, the one?
I live right around the corner from there, and you see, that very same day I saw a man walking, and his shirt was covered in blood.
Do you know who he is?
She's seen this individual before, is close by to the area where the victim was found, and she's able to point out the apartment he lives in. Well, somebody covered in blood in the crime scene area would certainly work. So they're very interested in who this guy is.
And you're sure that it was the same day?
Positive.
We'll check it out. Thanks for coming down, Jimmy.
He either has to be part of this or he's not. He has to be cleared or arrested, one of the two.
So Smith went over there, knocked on the door.
Yes?
And sure enough, this individual's got a cut over his eye.
Sir, I'm Detective Smith. Do you mind if I come in and ask you a few questions?
Guess so.
Well, could he have gotten that cut in a fight with our victim? Very well could have.
Inside, Smith sits down with 31-year-old James Conley.
What's all this about?
Mr. Conley, we have reports of you seen in the same area where a murder took place. You were covered with blood. Can you explain it?
Mr. Connolly reports that he was recently in a motorcycle accident and it adversely affected his equilibrium. He has great difficulty in walking and now he has to use a cane. But he went out the other day to buy some beer at the gas station he frequents and he had forgotten his cane.
I took a nasty fall on the way. I split my eye open, damn near bled through my shirt.
I see.
Now, any policeman knows that a head wound bleeds profusely. There are many capillaries in your scalp and your forehead, and when you get even a minor injury to your forehead, you are covered in blood, and you look like you're going to die any minute. So that's a very reasonable explanation.
Can anybody verify that?
I suppose the gas station clerk. I bought beer and bandages from him. Actually, I have the receipt. Let me go get that.
I appreciate that.
He needs a cane just to walk. It would be very difficult for someone who has difficulty walking to engage in a physical confrontation with a resistive victim.
Made this purchase at 3:15 p.m.?
Sounds about right.
Timestamp on the receipt told Lou right away that this was much, much earlier in the day than this homicide occurred.
Okay, Mr. Conley. Thank you. Officer?
His timeline doesn't work at all for this murder. His explanation is more than reasonable, and the officers decide that Connolly has no promise whatsoever.
Back at the station, it's all hands on deck to wade through the endless flood of tips.
Excuse me, Detective. There's a woman on the phone for you. She says she's your Jane Doe's roommate.
Another one of these tips?
You're going to want to take this phone call. She's online, too.
It's always difficult to take anyone seriously when they call in to report they know who it is, when you've already had 100 people do that, and 100 people were wrong about it.
Detective Smith?
I know it's her. I know it's my roommate. I haven't seen her in days.
Okay, slow down. What's your name?
Pamela Roost. Listen, she always comes home eventually. She carries her apartment key with her everywhere.
What did you say?
It's a gold key, a single gold key. She always keeps it in her front jean pocket.
This is very specific information that was never released to the public. So here we have someone who knows something that nobody knows, that the person carries a key in their pocket. Well, my. After hundreds of people, we may have found the magic one. Lou Smith has been assigned the gruesome homicide of a young female who is yet unidentified.
Cause of death was that gash there.
But now, finally, after hundreds of tips, we have a person that seems to be extremely promising.
I know it's my roommate.
She knows things that no one else would know that wasn't associated with the case.
After finally catching a potential break, investigators rush to meet the tipster, Pamela Roost.
Now, Pamela, you told me that your roommate carried her apartment key in her pocket.
Yes, always.
This look familiar?
That's it.
But it's very important to get the identification as quickly as possible. And once you've got that, you have something that will start you down the right path.
May I?
Please.
Smith inserts the key in that door, and it unlocks it.
He knew then that he probably just identified his Jane Doe victim.
But Smith still needs her to positively ID the body.
I'm going to show you a photo. Can you do that?
That's got to be just very traumatic and very stressful, and, you know, the kind of thing where your stomach's churning.
Oh my God. That's her. That's Karen.
It's a huge step up in this investigation. Her name is Karen Grammer.
What can you tell me about her?
She was just so lovely.
Karen Grammer was your typical 18-year-old starting out life. She was adventurous. She was kind of a free spirit. She liked poetry, and people liked her.
She says she came here to find work in the restaurant business. She's a waitress by trade, and we met and became roommates and became friends.
She has family here. We'd like to notify them.
No, they're mainly in Florida. God, her brother's gonna be devastated. They were very close.
Karen Grammer was, in fact, the sister of Kelsey Grammer, who went on to become a very famous actor. Their father was lost to them when they were young.
So they leaned on each other. They were close.
Who could have done this to Karen? She didn't have any enemies in the world. Everyone loved her.
Well, that's what we're trying to find out. Now, when is the last that you saw her?
She said that Karen works the evening shift at a seafood restaurant, and the last time she saw her, she went to work, and she never came back.
I didn't know what to think.
And that was the night of the murder. So we know that Karen Grammer was at the seafood restaurant the night she was killed.
You have any idea where this seafood restaurant is?
It's over on Academy.
The seafood restaurant is several miles across town from where she was discovered. So how did she get from the seafood restaurant to the place where she's found in a relatively short amount of time? How'd that happen?
I noticed she wasn't wearing glasses in the photograph that you showed me. Did you find them?
Why do you ask?
Her roommate said that she was almost as blind as a bat, that she wore very thick glasses.
Well, those glasses were never found. And then the question becomes, where are they?
Thank you, Pamela. You've been a great help.
With no time to waste, Smith heads over to the restaurant where Karen worked.
Did she show up for a shift? Did she work all day? We can find out a lot from the people that she worked with.
Excuse me, sir. You work here?
I do. I'm the manager. How can I help you?
Smith meets the manager of the place, and he remembers Karen being there that night.
He was a little annoyed that Karen never showed up for the rest of her shifts.
Karen may not have a job with us much longer. We haven't seen her since.
He doesn't realize what's happened to Karen Grammer.
I'm sorry to tell you, sir, but Karen's been killed.
Oh, my God.
He's incredibly distressed and immediately willing to do anything he can do to help.
You know, Tyler worked that night. Maybe he can help you.
Thank you.
The cashier is Tyler Harrington.
Hi, Tyler. I'm Detective Schmidt.
Tyler had just overheard the conversation that Karen is dead, and he's very distressed.
Oh, my God.
I didn't think those guys would actually hurt her.
And Smith said, "What did you say? What guys are you talking about?"
What have I done?
He says the night she was killed, 3 guys came in here and one of them pulled a gun on me and tried to rob the place.
I had already emptied the cash register and I had nothing, so they left.
But then he saw them approach Karen and start talking to her.
God.
So Smith's immediate thought is, could this have been a robbery gone wrong and Karen Grammer was collateral damage? That could very well be true. We're going to have to find out.
Didn't see it coming.
Lou Smith is investigating the violent death of Karen Grammer. He encounters a cashier at a seafood restaurant where she was employed, who says that an attempted robbery took place. It's fairly clear to Smith this could be connected to this homicide.
After countless dead ends, Detective Smith believes 17-year-old Tyler Harrington might be the key witness he's been searching for.
Now, wait a minute. Are you telling me that you saw the suspects talking to Karen after they just tried to rob you at gunpoint?
Yes.
All of a sudden, Tyler Harrington has provided him with what is likely to be the prime suspects in this case.
What I need you to do now is start from the beginning. What happened?
It was getting time for me to lock up, and these three guys walked in.
Excuse me, we're closed.
Not anymore. Give me all your money.
And one of the males opened his coat and showed him a gun.
I'm not playing. Give me all your money now.
I swear I don't have anything. I swear.
Tyler said, the register's already been cleaned out. There's nothing here.
So it's a botched robbery. There's no people to rob. There's no anything to rob.
How did you get them to leave?
I told them I had someone waiting outside for me, and they got spooked, I guess.
Well, did you?
No, but I didn't know Karen was out there.
Tyler says he looks out the window and sees these guys talking to Karen.
Now, maybe these three guys assumed that Karen was the one waiting for Tyler. Did they decide that Karen Grammer is a witness to their attempted robbery and make a decision to take her?
Why didn't you report
I didn't want to get in trouble. I was supposed to have already locked the door. If I would have did that, man, none of this even would have happened.
What happened to Karen is not your fault, son.
He was just too scared to say anything to anybody. Now, at his age, that's understandable. There's a fear factor there that's unexplainable to somebody who's an adult and understandable to somebody who's a kid.
Now, what I need you to do is try to remember everything about these individuals.
Right. Well, there was three black guys. Definitely military.
Why did you say that?
He had the impression that they were military, as they had short, high and tight haircuts, the military-style cut, and one of them was wearing a field jacket.
Okay, Tyler. If you remember anything else, call me. Understand?
Yes, sir.
So now, going from 0 to 60 miles an hour in this case, we now know we're looking for three black males with military haircuts. When Smith returned to the station, he encounters Detective Burns and Detective Adams, and they're discussing their investigations into their homicides. So they all sit down, because now Smith's got something to say.
Sounds like we're looking for a couple of military guys. Black males, armed.
Yeah, that's interesting. The witnesses gave me the same description in my case.
No kidding.
We've got three cases now with seemingly different motives, but they could always be connected. You keep that in the back of your mind.
What are the details?
Victim is a 29-year-old male.
Smith learns that the first victim was identified as Daniel Van Loan, a cook at the Four Seasons Hotel.
11 days before Karen Grammer is murdered, Daniel Van Loan was found on the side of the road by a patrolman just a mile from where he worked. He had a scarf tied over his face and had been shot in the temple.
And only 3 days before Grammer's death, Winifred Prophet, a soldier stationed at Fort Carson, was also murdered under mysterious circumstances.
Detective Adams says that Winifred Prophet was found stabbed to death at Prospect Lake.
They stabbed him in the chest with an Army-issue bayonet.
People in the area said they saw a group of black males in a green vehicle cruising around.
Any idea who that might be?
We're not sure, but we may all be looking after the same guys.
You know, I'm starting to think the same thing.
They start thinking, do we have serial killers on our hands?
If they are the same guys, they are incredibly dangerous. They kill without compassion.
Detective Schmidt, I'm sorry to interrupt. You have a phone call in your office? It's pretty urgent.
Trying to say who they were?
No, sir.
Thanks, Kenda. Well, fellas, let's gonna have to circle back on this.
You got it.
Later that day, Detective Smith gets the break he's been looking for.
Detective Smith?
I'm calling from the New Orleans District Attorney's Office. I have a defendant in custody I think you'll be interested in.
He says that he has information about the murder of Karen Grammer in Colorado Springs, and he also knows about the murder of Daniel Van Loan and Winifred Prophet.
You got to be kidding me.
Could this be the key piece of information to catching a serial killer? It most certainly could. Lou Smith is investigating the murder of 18-year-old Karen Grammer, but has learned of 2 other investigations involving the murder of Daniel Van Loan and Winfred Prophet that are connected.
I think you'll be interested.
A district attorney's investigator in New Orleans says he has a defendant in custody who knows everything about all 3 murders, and he's willing to trade this information in exchange for leniency.
And Detective Smith knows just the person to help broker a deal.
Hey, Chuck.
Hey.
The police department or Lou Smith cannot grant immunity to any witness. It has to come through the district attorney, Chuck Heim.
You know that grammar case I'm working?
Of course. What's the latest?
You never guess who called me.
Who?
Smith says the New Orleans District Attorney's Office had been tracking an individual through the FBI whose name was Larry Dunn. And what Mr. Dunn wants is immunity from the murder charges.
Lou says, we need to talk to this guy. I said, all right, where is he?
He's in New Orleans.
What do you think he knows?
He said, I think he knows about at least 3 murders. He may have been at them or was told about them by the people that did the killing.
Interesting. Let me just make a quick phone call.
All right, I'm gonna go get back.
Over the next hour, investigator Chuck Heim quickly works out a deal with his boss.
I said, all right, I will give him immunity for anything he has done in the 4th Judicial District if he agrees to give us all the information that he knows about these killings. And so we went down on an afternoon flight to New Orleans, and we interviewed him the next morning at the New Orleans House of Detention.
Sure appreciate you giving us a call.
Nice to meet you, fellas. Glad you made the trip. Seems like Dunn's ready to talk.
Let's get in there.
We went in there and shut the door. We looked at him, and I drilled him in the eyes, and he looked like he was dead serious.
Okay. You tell us the truth about these murders, and you agree to testify at trial, we'll give you immunity for all the crimes you've committed in the state of Colorado. Are you interested?
Immunity transactions are conducted with the following caveats. In no uncertain terms. That you need to spill your guts. You need to vomit your information all over this table. And if you leave out one single fact, we're going to burn you to the ground. You on occasion have to make a deal with the devil. It's how this works.
Now, tell me about Daniel Van Loan.
Well, we needed the money, and he seemed like an easy target.
Dunn said that he, another guy named Freddie Glenn, and another guy named Michael Corbett waited for Mr. Van Loan to get off of work.
Daniel Van Loan was a cook. They decided, let's go rob him.
Get him out the car!
What are you doing?
Let's go!
Please help!
Hey, blindfold his ass!
Don't do this!
Get on your knees.
Get on your knees, man! I'm begging you, I got a wife and children!
They shot him in the head.
Check his pockets, man.
Oh, come on, man! 50 cents?
And robbed him of a mere 50 cents and left him in a ditch on the side of the road.
The guy was a bust. He had like 2 quarters on him. What happened next? There was that one guy, Winfred.
Dunn said they next targeted Winfred Prophet, who was a soldier that they all knew. They had arranged a bogus drug deal to lure Winfred Prophet to Prospect Lake.
Hey, guys.
Prophet, give me all your money.
What?
There was no deal going down. They didn't have any marijuana. They wanted to rob him.
What are you doing?
That's right, your money.
Freddie, come on, man, please.
Freddie Glenn stabbed him in the chest and then gleefully told people about how lovely it felt when he stuck this bayonet into this guy's chest and felt the bones crunch.
I mean, these guys are animals. It's not that they're trying to get money. Michael Corbett and Freddie Glenn are killing because they like to kill.
I want to talk about Karen Grammer. Why don't we start from the beginning? The night of June 30th.
It was me, Corbett, and Glenn just chilling at the apartment. Glenn got the idea to make a few hits, which is nothing new.
How do you mean?
Larry Dunn said that they were all in the military together out at Fort Carson.
But they were always in trouble. They were robbing fellow soldiers, and they're all together on this evening.
Then Larry Dunn said just prior to leaving the apartment, they each ate a hit of LSD. Sometimes it can make you very violent.
We drove around till we came to that seafood spot.
The one on Academy?
Yeah, that one. Give me all your money.
Give me all your money now. I swear I don't have anything. I swear.
The place was a bust, so we left. Then we seen that white girl outside.
Karen Grammer.
Yeah, her.
Karen Grammer was standing in exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong moment.
Hey. How long you been standing out here?
I'm just waiting for my friend to get off work.
She's seen us, bruh. She's seen
Wait,
us.
so what?
Enough of this. You know what? You come in with us. Come on.
Get on me! Help! Help!
Her fate was sealed the moment she crossed paths with these killers. They saw her as somebody that they could kidnap and brutalize, and that's what they wanted.
And they decided to drive back to Freddie Glenn's apartment, and then the sexual assaults started.
They all took turns, sexually assaulting her every way which you can. And that's all I want to say about it.
Now what? What we gonna do with her?
I don't know, man. She's seen our faces.
Yo, we can't let her go, man.
Yo, shut up! Let's get her back in the car and drop her off somewhere.
The initial decision is they're going to just drop her off on the other side of town. They had tied her hands together with a blue scarf, and they had taken off her glasses and put them on the dashboard of the car. So essentially, she's riding around with them and can't see anything.
Please don't let them kill me. I'll do anything you want. Please help me.
Don't worry, you'll be all right.
They came across this alley next to a trailer park on the south side of the city, and Dunn says they decided this was a good place to let her go.
Get out of here. Okay, man, let's go.
But according to Larry Dunn, that's when Freddie Glenn had a change of heart.
No, man. She's seen too much.
Glenn goes up behind Karen Grammer.
Hold your neck back.
And tells her to tip her head back. He cuts her throat and stabs her several times in the back. And she tries to fight him off, getting a few defensive wounds, but is unsuccessful.
Freddie, what's wrong with you, man?
Try! Now! Come on, go!
She is stumbling around, blind, without her glasses, bleeding to death. And they speed away in their car. And she staggers probably toward the light that she sees of a porch light.
To still be alive and crawl along the ground, clawing her way, touching, seeing a door, thinking, maybe I can get some help. That's the hard part, is to know what she went through.
She was able to get to Mr. Hudson's trailer, where she ended up dying.
We have a young girl loses her life for no reason at all.
I think we've heard enough.
Officer.
Larry Dunn agrees to testify against Corbett and Glenn and receives immunity for his involvement in the 3 murders.
This information from Dunn is sufficient to obtain arrest warrants for Freddie Glenn and Michael Corbett.
They tracked down Freddie Glenn and Michael Corbett, arrest both of them, but they both lawyered up. Well, you know what? We don't need you to talk. We got what we need.
There is more than sufficient case here to put them away forever.
Freddie Glenn and Michael Corbett are convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder. They are sentenced to life in prison.
Michael Corbett died in the summer of 2019 in his cell at the age of 64. Freddie Lee Glenn remains locked up in the Colorado State Penitentiary.
Excellent work, everybody.
Yes.
We all played a part. I'm just glad we got justice here.
Here, here.
I was very proud of Colorado Springs Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. Lou Smith was the one that really put the frosting on the cake, coordinating this. They did an excellent job starting with nothing and getting people charged.
It was inspiring for me to see the level of competence of the police department. It made me proud to be a policeman.
Just want to congratulate you, sir. Amazing work.
Thanks, Kenda.
It further inspired me to want to get there. I wanted to be one of those homicide detectives. And I was a very fortunate fellow that I was able to do precisely that.
Although her killers were caught, the tragic loss of Karen Grammer will forever haunt those who loved her.
Let me talk about my sister for a second. She graduated at the head of her class, and then she decided to go to Colorado Springs because she had a boy that she liked. She was a terrific kid. She was a wonderful, wonderful person. I miss her all the time.
Karen Grammer was an 18-year-old girl with her whole life in front of her, taken by extreme violence for no reason at all, and killed for the thrill of the killing. The sickest possible form of murder.
No one noticed the sound at first. That was the detail investigators would obsess over years later. A sharp noise, somewhere between a door slamming and a gunshot, swallowed by the wind moving across the flat Texas fields just after midnight, when Highway 87 was empty and the town of Larkspur slept with its porch lights off. By morning, the sound was gone, the air was still, and a woman named Emily Carter had vanished without leaving behind so much as a footprint that could be trusted. This is where the cold case begins. Texas, 2001. A town so small that strangers were remembered, and silence was treated as proof that everything was fine. Emily Carter was 29 years old, a medical billing clerk, recently divorced, recently moved back into her childhood home on Juniper Road. She was not the kind of person people expected to disappear. She paid her bills on time. She waved at neighbors. She called her mother every Sunday night at exactly 8. When she failed to show up for work on Monday morning, her supervisor assumed car trouble. By noon, concern crept in. By dusk, panic settled like dust on every surface. Her car was still in the driveway. Her purse sat on the kitchen counter. Her bed looked slept in, the sheets twisted, one pillow on the floor. The back door was unlocked. Police arrived just after 9:40 p.m., lights off as they rolled onto Juniper Road, instinctively quiet, as if noise might chase away something fragile and unseen. Inside the house, nothing screamed violence. No blood. No broken glass. No overturned furniture. The refrigerator hummed. A cup of coffee sat cold by the sink. On the answering machine, 3 messages. All routine. All harmless. None from that night. The first officer on scene wrote in his report, possible voluntary disappearance. That sentence would age badly. Neighbors offered fragments. Someone thought they saw headlights around 12:30 a.m. Another neighbor remembered a car idling too long near the corner, then driving off without turning on its lights. No one was certain. No one wanted to be. Certainty meant involvement. By day 3, the word missing turned into cold case whispered in the same breath. Flyers went up on gas station windows. Yellow tape flapped lazily at the edge of Emily's yard. Reporters came, then left. The town exhaled and told itself this was not its story anymore. Detectives focused on what they always focused on first: the ex-husband, the last argument, the uncomfortable phone calls. He lived 2 counties away. He had an alibi. It was thin, but it held. Friends were questioned. Co-workers were interviewed. A man from a bar Emily sometimes visited was brought in, questioned, released. Each lead frayed under pressure, leaving nothing but speculation and the growing weight of unanswered questions. Weeks turned into months. Months into years. The file thickened, then gathered dust. Every anniversary of Emily's disappearance reopened wounds the town pretended had healed. Her mother kept the porch light on every night. Her brother drove Juniper Road slowly, scanning ditches, tree lines, shadows that felt heavier than they should. The police department rotated detectives. Each new face promised fresh eyes. Each walked away with the same empty hands. There was no body, no weapon, no crime scene that would hold up in court, just absence. By 2008, the case was officially classified as a cold case. The words were clinical, neat, merciless. Cold cases do not bleed. Cold cases do not cry. Cold cases wait. Then quietly something changed. In 2023, a routine arrest in Amarillo for an unrelated assault brought an unexpected name back into circulation. A man with no criminal record in 2001. A man who had lived 3 blocks from Juniper Road. A man who had been questioned once, briefly, and cleared within 15 minutes because no one had known what to ask him back then. Advances in forensic technology had rewritten the rules. Evidence once dismissed as meaningless was suddenly loud. Fibers. Soil traces. A partial fingerprint lifted from the inside of Emily's back door, preserved but forgotten, now matched with unsettling confidence. When detectives reopened the file, the pages cracked like old bones. The arrest came without warning. No press conference. No early leak. Just a quiet knock on a door and the clink of handcuffs that echoed louder than any gunshot ever could. The headline broke hours later. Texas 2001 cold case reopened. Surprise arrest after 22 years. The community reeled. The man everyone thought they knew. The neighbor who waved back. The familiar face at the grocery store. Shock rippled outward, touching every person who had ever said, "That could never happen here." But an arrest is not an ending. It is a question with teeth. Because even now, even with a suspect in custody, Emily Carter is still missing. No remains have been found. No confession has filled in the darkness between midnight and morning. The house on Juniper Road still stands, empty, its walls holding secrets that refuse to speak. The case remains open. The silence remains loud. And somewhere in the space between justice and uncertainty, a town waits to learn whether the truth will finally surface or sink deeper into the cold. The arrest changed the rhythm of the town overnight, but it did not bring relief. It brought unease. Larkspur woke up knowing that the mystery they had learned to live beside had suddenly shifted closer, sharper, and far more personal. The man taken into custody was Daniel Reeves, 49 years old, warehouse supervisor, Little League volunteer, divorced, quiet, punctual, forgettable in the way people trusted most. In 2001, he lived alone in a rental house 3 blocks from Emily Carter's home. Back then, he told police he'd been asleep. No one pressed him. No one looked twice. Now his name was everywhere, spoken in lowered voices, typed in block letters across news banners, whispered at the grocery store as if saying it too loudly might summon something awful. Detectives reopened their notebooks and discovered how thin the original investigation really was. In the early days, speed had been mistaken for progress. Interviews were rushed. Notes were brief. The department had been understaffed, underfunded, and unprepared for a case that did not resolve itself neatly. Daniel Reeves had been one of 12 men questioned that week. His interview lasted 14 minutes. No follow-up. No background check beyond the surface. He had been cooperative, polite, calm. That had been enough. What brought him back into focus was not a confession, not a witness coming forward after 2 decades, but a sliver of evidence that technology had finally learned how to hear. The fingerprint from the back door had never been complete, just a partial smudge, too degraded to run through databases at the time. It had sat in an evidence envelope marked low priority, surviving floods, relocations, and near disposal by sheer accident. In 2022, a cold case unit reviewing unsolved disappearances fed the print into a modern system. The match probability came back high enough to raise eyebrows. Then alarms. Reeves' fingerprint should not have been there. He claimed he had never been inside Emily Carter's home. He said they were neighbors, nothing more. A wave. A nod. No visits. No reason. The print contradicted him. And once that contradiction existed, everything else began to shift. Detectives reconstructed Reeves' movements in the days surrounding Emily's disappearance. Time sheets showed he left work early that Friday. Gas station receipts placed him within a mile of Juniper Road just before midnight. Cell phone records, once impossible to access, now painted a faint but troubling picture. A brief signal ping near Emily's house at 12:17 a.m., then nothing until morning. Not proof. Not yet. But patterns rarely announce themselves all at once. They emerge slowly, daring investigators to look away. Neighbors were re-interviewed, older now, less certain, but haunted by details they had dismissed as irrelevant. One woman remembered a man standing under a streetlight that night, smoking, watching nothing in particular. Another recalled a car door closing softly, deliberately, as if someone did not want to be heard. A former patrol officer admitted, off the record, that Reeves had made him uneasy back then, though he could never explain why. Unease, however, does not survive courtrooms. Evidence does. The community began to fracture under the pressure of memory. Some defended Reeves fiercely, clinging to the version of him they had known for years. Others felt betrayed, angry at themselves for trusting him, angrier at the police for missing what now seemed obvious. The past was being rewritten in real time, every shared laugh and borrowed tool now re-examined through a darker lens. Emily Carter's family watched from a distance, careful not to hope too loudly. They had learned what hope did to them. They followed the updates, listened to the press briefings, noted the careful language. Person of interest. Ongoing investigation. No further details at this time. Words designed to contain chaos, to keep emotions from spilling over the edge. But beneath those words was a question that refused to go away. Where is Emily? Search efforts resumed, this time guided by technology that had not existed when she vanished. Ground-penetrating radar scanned fields outside town. Cadaver dogs traced paths that ended abruptly at roadsides. Old wells were inspected. Shallow graves were imagined everywhere. Each dig brought cameras. Each empty hole brought disappointment sharpened by time. Reeves' home was searched next. Not the house he lived in now, but the one from 2001, long since sold, remodeled, sanitized by new owners who had no idea what shadows might be buried beneath fresh paint. Investigators focused on the garage, the backyard. A patch of concrete poured the year after Emily disappeared. Samples were taken, analyzed, debated. The results were inconclusive. Always inconclusive. Pressure mounted. Media attention surged. Podcasts resurrected the case with dramatic flair. Online sleuths dissected every photograph, every line of the original police reports, finding mistakes with the confidence of hindsight. Some claimed Emily had known her killer. Others suggested a second person, a cover-up, a wider conspiracy. Noise flooded the space where clarity was needed most. Inside the interrogation room, Reeves maintained his composure. He denied knowing what happened to Emily. He explained the fingerprint away as contamination, coincidence, a mistake. He pointed out the lack of a body, the lack of a murder weapon, the lack of anything that could conclusively place him inside that house at the moment she vanished. His attorney nodded. The law demands more than suspicion. It demands certainty. Detectives pushed harder. They showed him photographs from 2001, the house, the back door, the street at night. They watched for reactions, micro-expressions, cracks. Reeves stared back, unmoved, or skilled enough to appear so. After hours, he was returned to his cell, his story intact, his eyes flat. The case teetered on the edge of something dangerous. An arrest without answers risks becoming a spectacle. A promise made too early can sour into mistrust. Prosecutors warned investigators not to rush. Without Emily, without physical proof of what happened after that door opened, the case could collapse under its own weight. Meanwhile, Emily's absence grew heavier. 22 years had not dulled it. If anything, it had sharpened it into something permanent. She was frozen in time at 29, while everyone else aged around her. Her face stared out from old photographs, unchanged, accusing, patient. The town of Larkspur waited again. But this waiting felt different. The cold case was no longer a ghost story told in past tense. It was active, breathing, unstable. Every day without new answers stretched nerves thinner. Every rumor cut deeper. People locked their doors earlier. They looked at each other longer. Trust, once cracked, does not repair easily. And beneath it all, a quieter fear took hold. If Daniel Reeves was not the answer, if the evidence failed, if the case slipped back into silence, then the truth might never surface at all. It might remain buried not in fields or concrete, but in the fragile, unreliable place where memory fades and time erases even the sharpest edges. The cold case had been reopened, but the cold had not lifted. Time does not behave like people expect inside an open investigation. It does not move forward. It circles. It revisits. It sharpens old moments until they feel newly dangerous. As the third week after the arrest dragged on, detectives realized they were no longer chasing events from 2001. They were fighting the erosion of everything that had happened since. Daniel Reeves sat in county jail while the town argued about who he had always been. Old acquaintances surfaced with half-memories and uneasy anecdotes. A former coworker recalled how Reeves hated surprises, how he needed control over small things, the radio volume, the placement of tools, the order of tasks. A woman who dated him briefly in 2004 remembered how he went silent when she asked about his past, how questions felt like trespassing. None of it was illegal. None of it was proof. But patterns do not need permission to exist. Investigators returned to the night of Emily Carter's disappearance again, this time stripping it down to minutes and meters. They reconstructed her last confirmed movements. At 9:43 p.m., she left a voicemail for her mother, apologizing for missing Sunday dinner, promising to call the next day. At 10:11 p.m., she purchased milk and bread at a convenience store less than a mile from her home. The cashier remembered her smile, her tired eyes. After that, nothing. No calls. No messages. No sightings that held up under scrutiny. The unlocked back door became the center of gravity. Emily was careful. Friends confirmed it. She double-checked locks. She once drove back home to make sure the oven was off. Leaving that door unlocked was either intentional or interrupted. There were no signs of forced entry. That detail haunted everyone involved. It suggested familiarity. Or deception. Detectives asked themselves a question that had not been asked loudly enough in 2001. Who would Emily have opened that door for at midnight? The list was shorter than anyone wanted to admit. Reeves' name hovered near the top, not because of closeness, but proximity. 3 blocks. A line of sight. An opportunity built into geography. Investigators discovered that Reeves' rental house had faced the same stretch of road Emily used daily. He would have known her routine without ever speaking to her. He would have known when her lights went out, when she was alone. That realization changed the tone of the case. Surveillance does not require intimacy. It requires patience. Cold case analysts brought in behavioral profilers who spoke in careful, unsettling language. If Reeves was responsible, they suggested, the lack of violence at the scene pointed toward coercion rather than force. A ruse. A request. A moment of hesitation exploited. It happens fast, one profiler said. Faster than people want to believe. Search teams widened their focus beyond Larkspur. In 2001, Reeves worked deliveries across multiple counties. His routes had never been fully documented. Now, GPS data from later years, combined with old paper logs, hinted at areas he knew well. abandoned service roads, unmarked turnoffs, places that did not draw attention because no one ever stayed long enough to notice. The land itself became suspect. Drones flew low over scrub and pasture. Thermal imaging revealed nothing. Crews dug where soil composition changed unnaturally, where vegetation grew too evenly. Each false lead drained morale. Each negative result strengthened Reeves' defense. Absence of evidence is not innocence, but it is powerful enough to bend juries. Meanwhile, the media narrative grew restless. Viewers wanted revelations. Podcasters wanted twists. Headlines promised answers that investigators did not yet have. Online forums turned ruthless. Some accused police of railroading an innocent man to close an embarrassing case. Others insisted Reeves had accomplices, that the truth was being protected by someone with influence. The noise threatened to drown out the work. Inside the interrogation room, detectives tried a different approach. They stopped accusing. They started listening. They let silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. They asked Reeves about 2001 without mentioning Emily. Music he liked, jobs he hated, the night routines he followed. At first he spoke freely. Then the gaps appeared. Small inconsistencies. A story told one way, then another. Not lies. Adjustments. Self-corrections that came too late. When they asked him about the back door, his jaw tightened. He repeated his explanation. Contamination. Error. Coincidence. The words came faster now, rehearsed, defensive. He asked for his lawyer. Outside the room, a detective slammed his notebook shut and whispered what everyone was thinking. He knows something. Knowing, however, is not the same as proving. Emily Carter's mother was interviewed again, this time on camera, her voice steady, her eyes hollowed by years of waiting. She spoke about the silence of the house, about how dust still settled on Emily's things as if she might return to disturb it. She did not accuse Reeves. She did not name anyone. She asked one question, the same one she had asked for 22 years. What happened to my daughter? As days passed, something unexpected surfaced. A tip. Anonymous. Brief. It referenced a hunting lease Reeves had access to in the early 2000s, land that had since been sold, subdivided, forgotten. The tip provided coordinates. No explanation. Just numbers. Investigators hesitated. Anonymous tips are dangerous.
They waste time.
They mislead. But the coordinates aligned with Reeves' old delivery routes. Close enough to matter. They assembled a team. The site was remote. Wind-scarred. Empty in a way that felt deliberate. They searched for hours. Found nothing. Then, near dusk, a dog alerted near a dry creek bed. The ground was hard. Excavation began slowly. Carefully. Cameras rolled. The town watched live feeds with held breath. The hole yielded scraps of fabric. Degraded. Indistinct. Not human. Relief and disappointment collided in equal measure. The site was logged. Samples sent. Another may be added to the pile. That night, Reeves slept in a cell. Emily Carter did not come home. The investigation entered its most dangerous phase. The one where pressure tempts shortcuts. Where prosecutors start calculating odds instead of truths. Where families are offered closure they may not be able to accept. Detectives argued behind closed doors. Some believed they were circling the truth. Others feared they were chasing shadows shaped by time and expectation.
Cold cases are cruel that way.
They give just enough hope to hurt you again. The town of Larkspur felt the tension settle into its bones. Conversations ended abruptly. Eyes lingered too long. People wondered what else had been missed. Who else had been misjudged? Trust does not vanish overnight. It erodes, grain by grain, until suddenly nothing feels solid. As the month drew to a close, one thing became clear. Whether Daniel Reeves was guilty or not, the case had reached a point of no return. There would be no quiet ending, no gentle fade into memory. The truth, if it existed in one clean shape, was being forced into the light. And light, as everyone involved was beginning to understand, does not always reveal. Sometimes, it only deepens the shadows. The shadows grew longer as summer pressed down on Larkspur, and with them came a different kind of pressure, the kind that does not announce itself with sirens or headlines but seeps into decisions, whispers into ears, nudges people toward choices they will later struggle to justify. By now, the case was no longer just about Emily Carter. It was about whether the past could still be trusted to tell the truth at all. Investigators shifted their attention to what had been overlooked not out of malice, but out of haste. Evidence handling in 2001 was not what it is now. Procedures were looser. Documentation was thinner. Boxes had been moved, opened, resealed. Every transfer introduced doubt. Defense attorneys circled this weakness like vultures, already building arguments in a courtroom that had yet to hear a single charge formally filed. Then came the phone records. In the early days of the investigation, Emily's phone had been treated as a dead end. It was never recovered. Without the device, there was little to examine. But phone companies, it turned out, remembered more than people. Archived billing logs, once thought inaccessible, were retrieved through subpoenas and patient digging. They showed a short incoming call at 12:06 a.m. on the night Emily vanished. The number was blocked. The call lasted 11 seconds. 11 seconds is enough time to say a name. Enough time to say, open the door. Enough time to say nothing at all. Block numbers were common in 2001. But when analysts cross-referenced nearby cell tower activity, a narrow list of phones emerged that could have made that call from that location at that time. The list was short. Uncomfortably short. Daniel Reeves owned one of those phones. His attorney argued coincidence. The defense always does. Cell tower data from that era was imprecise, they said. Coverage areas overlapped. Signals bounced. You could not place a person at a door with math alone. They were right. But coincidences pile up. And piles draw attention. Detectives revisited Reeves' history with a focus that bordered on obsession. Employment records. Financial statements. Relationship patterns. What they found was not dramatic, but it was consistent. Reeves had moved often. Not fleeing. Drifting. Every few years, a new address, a new job, a new circle of acquaintances. He never stayed long enough for anyone to know him deeply. He never stayed short enough to seem suspicious. He existed in the margins of other people's lives. A former neighbor from 2001 finally agreed to speak on record. She had avoided police back then, afraid of involvement, afraid of being wrong. Now, with the case reopened, her memory resurfaced with startling clarity. She recalled Reeves knocking on her door late one night, asking to borrow jumper cables. She remembered the time because it was after midnight and because he seemed irritated when she hesitated. She could not remember the date. She wished she could. Regret filled the gaps where certainty should have been. Another witness came forward, this one unexpected. A tow truck driver who worked nights along Highway 87 remembered being flagged down in the early hours of a Saturday morning in 2001. A man matching Reeves' description asked for help with a stalled vehicle. The driver remembered dirt on the man's shoes. Fresh. Heavy. The vehicle was running fine by the time they finished talking. The driver had assumed nerves. Now he wasn't so sure. Memory is treacherous. It changes shape under pressure. Investigators knew this. Prosecutors feared it. But memory was all they had left to work with. Behind closed doors, the debate turned darker. Some investigators believed Emily Carter had been killed that night. Others held on to the possibility that she had been moved, held that her fate extended beyond Juniper Road. Without a body, both theories remained viable. Without proof, neither could be proven. The cold case unit requested permission to conduct a deeper forensic analysis of Reeves' personal items from 2001 that had somehow survived. A jacket stored by his sister. A toolbox he had loaned and never reclaimed. Fibers were extracted. Compared. Results trickled in slowly, each one landing with muted impact. Similarities. Not matches. Near misses that raised hopes and dashed them just as quickly. Reeves watched all of this from a distance, legally restrained from commenting publicly, but visibly aware of the storm forming around him. In jailhouse phone calls recorded and analyzed, his tone shifted. He spoke less about being falsely accused and more about being tired, about wanting things to be over. Not confessions. But fatigue has a way of loosening tongues if given time. One call, in particular, caught attention. Speaking to a former coworker, Reeves said, "They're digging up ghosts. Some things are better left where they are." It was vague, harmless on paper, loaded in context. The community felt the weight of that sentence settle like dust. People began revisiting their own past actions, their own silences. Who else had known something and said nothing? Who else had dismissed a detail because it was inconvenient? Guilt is contagious. It spreads quietly, convincing people they are complicit simply for having lived nearby. Emily Carter's house was sold again. The new owners, unable to handle the attention, moved out within months. The structure remained empty, a physical reminder that some places never recover. Investigators conducted a final walkthrough, this time with modern tools. Luminol glowed faintly in places no one expected. Inconsistent. Uncertain. But enough to reopen debates that had been settled years earlier. The glow did not mean blood. It meant possibility. Prosecutors faced a choice that would define the case. File charges now and risk losing everything, or wait, hoping for the one piece of evidence that would turn suspicion into certainty. Waiting, however, carried its own risks. Witnesses aged. Memories faded. Evidence degraded. Time once again threatened to win. As summer bled into fall, the pressure intensified. Public opinion hardened into camps. Innocent until proven guilty clashed with the need for accountability. Reeves' face appeared on screens nightly. Emily's smile stared back from old photographs, unchanged, defiant in its stillness. Then, just as momentum seemed to stall, a development emerged from an unexpected place. A sealed box from the original evidence room, mislabeled and nearly destroyed during a storage purge, was recovered. Inside were items never fully examined. Among them, a set of keys found near Juniper Road 2 days after Emily vanished, dismissed at the time as unrelated. Modern analysis revealed traces on the metal. Skin cells. Partial DNA. It was not enough to close the case. But it was enough to change its trajectory. The cold case was no longer circling blindly. It had found a direction. Whether that direction led to truth or disaster remained unclear. But one thing was certain now. The past was not finished speaking. The keys changed everything, not because they unlocked a door, but because they reopened a way of thinking the investigation had abandoned years ago. In 2001, they were cataloged as debris, possibly dropped by a jogger, possibly thrown from a car. No one could match them to Emily's home, her car, or anything in her immediate life. They were ordinary. Too ordinary to matter. That ordinariness was their camouflage. Now, under new lights, the metal told a different story. Skin cells clung to the ridges, preserved in microscopic creases where fingers had pressed too long, too hard. The lab results came back with cautious language, the kind designed to survive cross-examination. Partial DNA. Inconclusive on its own. But when compared against known profiles, the probability narrowed sharply. Daniel Reeves' genetic markers were consistent with what was found on the keys. Not definitive.
Not yet.
But no longer ignorable. Investigators reconstructed the location where the keys had been found. A shallow ditch near a service road that cut behind Juniper Road, invisible from the main street, used mostly by utility crews and delivery drivers. A place someone might pass without thinking twice. A place someone might choose deliberately if they knew the area well. Reeves knew the area well. The theory began to solidify, not as a clean narrative, but as a sequence of decisions made quickly and then lived with forever. Emily receives a call just after midnight. A familiar voice, or a voice pretending to be. She unlocks the back door, maybe irritated, maybe confused. She steps outside, or lets someone in. What happens next leaves no obvious struggle, no broken objects, no screams anyone can later swear to. The house remains quiet. The town sleeps. The keys enter the story somewhere in that darkness. Not hers. Not his. Something used briefly, then discarded, a small mistake in an otherwise careful night. Reeves' attorney attacked the DNA angle immediately. Partial profiles are dangerous, he argued. Transferred DNA exists. Contamination happens. The keys had been handled by officers, lab techs, storage clerks. The defense painted a picture of evidence compromised by time and human error. Jurors, they warned, would not convict on probabilities and maybes. Prosecutors knew this. They needed context. They needed corroboration. They needed to turn fragments into something that resembled truth. They turned back to Reeves' past again, this time looking for echoes. Patterns rarely confine themselves to a single event. If Emily Carter was not the first, there might be others who never realized how close they came to disappearing. Detectives quietly contacted women Reeves had known over the years. Former partners, casual acquaintances, neighbors. Most reported nothing unusual. Some described him as distant, controlling in small ways, emotionally absent. One woman paused before answering and then admitted that Reeves had once shown up uninvited late at night, claiming concern, refusing to leave until she threatened to call the police. She had dismissed it as awkwardness. Now, she wasn't sure. Another recalled how he asked detailed questions about her schedule, her routes, her habits. She thought it was interest. She thought it was care. In hindsight, it felt like inventory. Still, nothing rose to the level of a crime. Nothing that could be charged. But the picture sharpened. Reeves did not drift aimlessly. He observed. He waited. The cold case unit faced an ethical line they could not cross lightly. Without Emily's body, without a confession, they risked constructing a story so compelling it overshadowed the possibility of being wrong. They reminded themselves daily that an arrest does not equal guilt, that certainty is seductive, that history is full of cases solved too confidently, too soon. And yet, Emily Carter remained missing. Her absence was the constant against which every doubt was measured. A breakthrough came from an unexpected corner of the investigation: old photographs. In 2001, police had canvassed the area with disposable cameras, snapping images of roads, ditches, yards, anything that might later matter. The photos were archived poorly, labeled vaguely, forgotten. A volunteer tasked with digitizing cold case materials noticed something strange in one frame taken near the service road. A vehicle, partially visible, parked where no one had a reason to park. The image was grainy, the license plate unreadable, but the shape, the damage pattern on the rear bumper, matched a truck Reeves owned at the time. He had reported it sold months after Emily's disappearance. The buyer could not be located. The paper trail ended abruptly. Enhancement software clarified just enough to raise alarms. The timestamp placed the photo at 1:04 a.m. That was nearly an hour after Emily's last known contact. Nearly an hour of silence. When confronted with the image, Reeves' reaction was subtle but unmistakable. His breathing changed. He leaned back. He asked to see it again. He said nothing for a long time. Then he said he could not be sure. Many trucks looked alike. Memory fades. 22 years is a long time. He was right. But silence speaks too. The pressure intensified. Prosecutors began preparing charges, not because the case was perfect, but because waiting longer risked losing what momentum remained. They debated manslaughter versus murder, kidnapping, evidence tampering. Each option carried risks. Each required a narrative the jury could follow without filling gaps with imagination. The town braced itself. Some residents felt relief that something was finally happening. Others feared the damage a failed trial would inflict. If Reeves walked free, the case might never recover. If he was convicted on shaky ground, the truth might be buried forever under appeals and doubt. Emily's family was brought into a private briefing. They listened without interruption as detectives laid out what they had and what they did not. No promises were made. No assurances offered. Just facts. Just fragments. Emily's mother nodded, absorbing each detail with a calm that came from long familiarity with disappointment. When they finished, she asked one question. "If you go to trial," she said, "will you still keep looking for her?" The room went quiet, because that was the real risk, that in chasing a conviction, the search for Emily herself would fade, that justice would become abstract, detached from the human being at its center. As autumn deepened, Reeves was formally charged. The headline flashed across screens with the same cold precision as before. Texas 2001 cold case moves toward trial. The word solved was carefully avoided. Too much remained unknown. In jail, Reeves made fewer calls. When he did speak, his words were clipped, cautious. Gone was the casual defensiveness. In its place sat something heavier. Calculation. Or resignation. It was hard to tell which. The land around Larkspur began to change with the season. Fields went brown. Trees thinned. Visibility improved. Search teams returned to areas once dismissed as too dense, too overgrown. Winter is cruel, but it is honest. It strips away cover. Somewhere out there, investigators believed, the truth still waited. Not as a revelation, not as a dramatic moment, but as a quiet fact, indifferent to how long it had been ignored. The cold case had moved closer to resolution. But resolution is not the same as closure. And as the trial loomed, one unsettling thought lingered in every conversation, every sleepless night. If Daniel Reeves did not break, if Emily Carter was never found, then the final chapter of this story might be written without its most important voice. Hers. The trial date loomed like a fixed star, immovable, pulling everything toward it whether the pieces were ready or not. In the weeks before jury selection, the investigation narrowed its focus, shedding distractions, committing to lines that could withstand scrutiny. What remained was not a single revelation, but a lattice of moments that, when aligned, suggested intention rather than accident. Prosecutors rehearsed the story they would tell without ever using the word story. They spoke instead of timelines, of opportunities, of behavior that made sense only if viewed as part of a longer pattern. They emphasized restraint, warning each other not to overreach, not to fill silence with speculation. The absence of Emily Carter's body hovered over every meeting like a missing organ, something everyone felt but no one could replace. Defense teams worked just as relentlessly. They filed motions to suppress. They attacked the fingerprint. They questioned the integrity of the keys. They dissected the cell tower data with the precision of surgeons. Their message was simple and devastating. After 22 years, memory is unreliable. Evidence is compromised, and desperation can masquerade as certainty. Both sides knew the jury would not be deciding whether Daniel Reeves was strange, or distant, or unsettling. They would be deciding whether the state had proven, beyond reasonable doubt, that he was responsible for a woman who had vanished into thin air. As the courtroom prepared, investigators continued searching. Winter exposed the land in ways summer never could. Creeks ran lower. Brush receded. Old paths reappeared. Aerial surveys identified disturbed soil patterns long hidden by vegetation. Teams followed each lead with disciplined caution, aware that false hope could be as damaging as none at all. One site drew particular attention. A tract of land Reeves had accessed multiple times in the early 2000s, according to reconstructed work routes and witness recollections. It was not remote enough to feel sinister, not busy enough to feel safe. Just land. Ordinary. Indifferent. The dig lasted 3 days. They found nothing that could be conclusively tied to Emily Carter. No remains. No clothing. No personal effects. But they found signs of disturbance inconsistent with natural erosion. Layers of soil that had been turned, then compacted. Not recently. Long ago. Long enough that certainty had eroded along with everything else. The findings were documented, filed, added to the growing archive of maybes. Inside the jail, Daniel Reeves began to change. Guards noted it first. He slept less, ate less. He stopped reading. When spoken to, he responded politely, distantly, as if conserving energy. His attorney described it as stress. Investigators saw something else. Compression. the slow tightening that occurs when options run out. Then came the letter. It arrived at the district attorney's office in an unmarked envelope, postmarked from a town 2 hours away. Inside was a single page, handwritten and signed. It did not confess. It did not accuse. It asked questions. Are you looking in the right place? Did you ever check the water? Some things don't stay buried. The letter could have been a prank, a byproduct of media attention. But the phrasing unsettled investigators. It mirrored language Reeves had used in recorded calls. Not identical, but close enough to matter. Water became the focus. In 2001, several lowhead dams and retention ponds existed near Reeves' delivery routes. Some had since been modified, others removed. Water is patient. It conceals without effort. Divers were called. Sonar deployed. Sediment sampled. Each operation was expensive. Each result inconclusive. The defense seized on the letter, arguing contamination of the jury pool, interference, harassment. The judge agreed to limit media access. Cameras were banned. Proceedings would be quieter now, more controlled. The story retreated from screens into court transcripts and whispered updates. Jury selection began under a cloud of tension. Potential jurors admitted exposure to the case. Some were dismissed. Others insisted they could be impartial. The process was slow, deliberate, draining. Each accepted juror carried the weight of knowing they might be asked to decide a truth that had resisted discovery for over 2 decades. Opening statements approached. On the eve of trial, investigators received a final lab result from the keys. Additional testing, using methods unavailable even a year earlier, refined the partial DNA profile. The probability shifted again. Still not definitive, but stronger. Enough to embolden the prosecution. Enough to terrify the defense. Reeves was informed that evening. His attorney explained the development carefully, choosing words meant to steady rather than alarm. Reeves listened, nodded, asked one question. If they don't have her, he said, how can they have me? It was not a denial. It was a calculation. The trial opened without spectacle. No dramatic entrances. No gasps. Just a courtroom filled with the quiet hum of anticipation. The prosecution laid out the timeline. The call. The door. The fingerprint. The keys. The truck. Each piece presented calmly, deliberately, as if afraid that urgency might undermine credibility. The defense countered with doubt. They emphasized time, distance, human error. They reminded the jury that suspicion is not proof, that patterns can be imposed where none exist. They pointed to alternative theories, none fully formed, all plausible enough to fracture certainty. Witnesses took the stand. Some wavered. Some held firm. Memory bent under cross-examination. Details blurred. The jury watched closely, measuring confidence against hesitation, sincerity against rehearsal. Emily Carter's mother testified last. She did not dramatize. She did not accuse. She spoke about absence, about unanswered phones, about how time had frozen her daughter in a single age while the world moved on without her. She asked the jury not for vengeance, but for honesty. Whatever the truth was, she said, it had already taken enough. Daniel Reeves did not testify. The state rested. The defense rested. Closing arguments circled familiar ground, each side urging the jury to trust their interpretation of uncertainty. When deliberations began, the courtroom emptied, leaving behind the residue of a story told and untold in equal measure. Days passed. Outside, winter deepened. Inside, 12 people debated probabilities and principles, wrestling with the uncomfortable reality that justice sometimes demands decisions in the absence of clarity. They asked for transcripts, for exhibits, for definitions. The questions revealed fractures, leanings, doubts. On the 4th day, a note arrived from the jury room. They were deadlocked. The judge instructed them to continue, to re-examine, to listen. Another day passed. Another note, still deadlocked. The numbers were not disclosed. The tension was. Finally, the judge declared a mistrial. The words landed with a dull finality. Not an acquittal, not a conviction, just an ending without resolution. Reeves was returned to custody pending further proceedings. The prosecution vowed to retry. The defense claimed vindication. Emily Carter remained missing. The town absorbed the outcome with a familiar ache. Hope, raised carefully, settled back into something harder, heavier. The case had moved forward only to circle again, like time itself. And yet, something had changed. The trial had exposed fissures in Reeves' story. It had forced evidence into the open. It had drawn out details that would not easily retreat into silence again. The cold case was not solved, but it was no longer dormant. As people left the courthouse, a question followed them, unspoken but persistent. If the truth had resisted discovery for 22 years, if it had survived searches, trials, and time itself, then what would it take to finally bring it into the light? The answer, whatever it was, had not yet arrived. But the case was not finished. Not even close. After the mistrial, the silence felt different. It was not the hollow quiet of an abandoned investigation, but the tense pause after something heavy has struck the ground and not yet settled. Larkspur did not celebrate. It did not mourn. It waited, uncertain whether what came next would finally end the story or stretch it into something unrecognizable. Daniel Reeves remained in custody, not because he had been convicted, but because the state was not ready to let him go. Prosecutors announced their intent to retry. Defense attorneys objected publicly, arguing that the case had revealed its weakness, that another trial would be punishment without proof. The judge set no immediate date. Time, once again, inserted itself between questions and answers. Behind the scenes, the cold case unit regrouped. Trials expose more than they resolve. Testimony had locked certain details into the record, but it had also revealed where the narrative strained. Jurors had believed some pieces and rejected others. The prosecution now knew exactly where doubt lived. The weakest point was still the same: Emily Carter. Without her, everything else felt theoretical. Investigators returned to the water. In 2001, the region's waterways had been poorly mapped. Records were incomplete. Some retention ponds no longer existed. Others had been expanded, dredged, reshaped by years of development. Water does not preserve evidence kindly, but it does preserve secrets efficiently. The anonymous letter had forced a reconsideration of places once dismissed as too difficult, too costly, too unlikely. This time, the search was quieter. No cameras. No press releases. Just boats moving slowly across dark surfaces, sonar beams slicing through murk, divers descending into cold, silted depths where visibility collapsed into nothing after a few feet. Each descent was logged. Each object catalogued. Tires. Scrap metal. Debris. Ordinary things, weighted by the knowledge of what might be hiding among them. Weeks passed without results. Inside the jail, Reeves' demeanor shifted again. The mistrial had given him something dangerous. Time. Time to adjust. Time to harden. He filed complaints. Requested new counsel. Spoke more in recorded calls, less guarded now that the immediate threat of conviction had receded. Investigators listened carefully. People rarely speak freely when they are afraid. They speak freely when they believe they have survived. In one call, Reeves laughed softly and said, "They think the land remembers." The line was casual, almost mocking, but it echoed something a profiler had said months earlier: that offenders sometimes believe the environment absolves them, that if the earth has covered something long enough, it becomes part of the landscape, no longer a crime, just history. That belief worried investigators more than anger would have. A break came from an unlikely source. A former delivery dispatcher, retired now, contacted the cold case unit after watching a documentary segment on the trial. She had not recognized the significance before. In 2001, she said, Reeves had requested a route change for 1 week in early March, citing construction delays. The paperwork had been misplaced. The construction never existed. That week fell 3 days after Emily Carter vanished. The revised route took Reeves past an area no one had focused on before. Not remote. not hidden. A narrow strip of land between a drainage canal and a decommissioned rail line, now partially developed, partially forgotten. It had changed hands twice since 2001. No one had ever searched it. Permission was requested. Granted. The search began. Ground-penetrating radar revealed anomalies. Not definitive shapes. Just disturbances that did not match surrounding soil patterns. Enough to justify excavation. Crews worked slowly, deliberately, aware that every inch of earth carried the weight of expectation. On the second day, a worker's shovel struck something solid that was not stone. The site went quiet. What emerged was not a body. Not yet. It was fabric. Faded. Fragile. Synthetic. Consistent with clothing popular in the early 2000s. Buttons followed. Then a zipper. Each item photographed. Bagged. Labeled. The air thickened with a familiarity everyone recognized and feared. Deeper still, they found bone fragments. The remains were incomplete. Scattered. Time and soil had done their work thoroughly. But they were human. Forensic teams took over. The area was secured. Word traveled quickly, despite efforts to contain it. Larkspur held its breath as helicopters hovered overhead, their sound cutting through the stillness that had defined the case for so long. Identification took time. DNA comparison is precise but not fast. Samples were degraded. Analysts worked carefully, methodically, unwilling to rush what could not be undone. Days stretched into a week. When the confirmation came, it arrived without ceremony. The remains were Emily Carter. The announcement did not bring relief. It brought gravity. 22 years of uncertainty collapsed into a single, devastating fact. Emily had not vanished into the unknown. She had been here, within reach, while the town aged around her. Reeves was informed the same day. This time, his reaction was not subtle. He stared at the floor. His jaw tightened. He said nothing. His attorney requested an immediate end to the interview. The calculation had shifted. The board had changed. Prosecutors moved quickly. Charges were amended. Murder replaced speculation. The absence that had haunted the case was finally filled with something solid, undeniable. Emily's voice, long silent, had found a way back through what remained of her. The second trial was scheduled with urgency that bordered on restraint. There would be no room for mistakes now. The defense pivoted, acknowledging the discovery but challenging the chain of custody, the cause of death, the timeline. They argued that location did not equal responsibility, that others had access. That coincidence still loomed large. But coincidence had grown tired. Forensic analysis revealed trauma consistent with blunt force, though specifics were impossible to determine. The manner of death could not be reconstructed fully. But the placement of the remains, the concealment, the route change, the evidence already presented at the first trial, all converged with a clarity that had previously been missing. In court, the atmosphere was different. The jury saw photographs that had not existed before. They heard expert testimony grounded in recovery, not theory. The prosecution no longer asked them to imagine what might have happened. They showed them what had. Reeves watched, expressionless. When it came time for him to speak, he declined again. Silence was no longer strategic. It was instinctive. The verdict came faster this time. Not immediately, but without the hesitation that had defined the first deliberation. When the jury returned, no one in the courtroom seemed surprised. Guilty. The word did not echo. It settled. Sentencing followed weeks later. Reeves was given life without parole. He showed no reaction, no outburst, no collapse. Just the quiet acceptance of a man who had lived with something for a very long time and no longer had the energy to deny it. Emily Carter was laid to rest in a ceremony attended by a town that did not quite know how to grieve properly after so much time. People brought photographs, stories, apologies whispered to the air. The past cannot hear, but people speak anyway. The cold case was officially closed. But closure is a legal term, not an emotional one. Even now, years later, Juniper Road feels heavier at night. People lock their doors without thinking. They pause when they hear a sound they cannot place. They remember how long the truth waited and how easily it could have remained hidden forever. The case taught the town something it never wanted to learn: that silence is not the same as peace, that time does not erase guilt, and that some answers arrive only after everything else has been taken. The cold case ended. The echo did not. The conviction did not quiet the town. If anything, it unsettled it further, because certainty has a way of exposing everything it touches. Once the verdict was read and the cameras moved on, Larkspur was left alone with the details it had avoided for years, the small decisions and silences that now felt louder than any headline. People began asking different questions, not about Daniel Reeves, but about themselves, about how close they had been, about what they had mistaken for normal. The investigation did not end with the gavel. It never does. Closure is a word used for paperwork, not for minds that replay nights they thought were ordinary. Detectives returned to the case files one last time, combing for gaps, checking for anyone else who might have known, might have helped, might have seen something and turned away. They found no accomplices, no hidden network, just a long chain of missed chances and human assumptions that had aligned perfectly once, and only once, to let a crime slip through unnoticed. Forensic teams continued working on Emily Carter's remains, not to prove guilt, but to restore dignity. Personal effects were cataloged carefully, cleaned, preserved. A necklace, buttons, a fragment of fabric that once brushed against skin now gone. Each item was returned to her family with instructions that sounded clinical and felt cruel. These were not mementos. They were evidence of time stolen. Reeves entered the prison system quietly, processed like thousands before him, his name reduced to a number, his story flattened into a line on a form. He appealed, as expected. The appeal failed. He filed another. It failed too. Over time, interest waned. The world found new stories, new horrors. Old ones faded into archives and search results, resurfacing only when anniversaries demanded remembrance. Inside his cell, Reeves aged faster than the calendar suggested. Guards reported nothing unusual. No remorse. No confession. Just a man who spoke rarely and slept lightly. He kept no photographs. Received no visitors beyond legal counsel. When asked once if he wanted to say anything to Emily Carter's family, he shook his head. Silence, it seemed, was the last thing he still controlled. The town tried to move on. New families moved into old houses. Businesses changed names. The road behind Juniper was repaved. Children grew up without knowing why certain adults went quiet when that case was mentioned. History blurred, as it always does, into something safer to hold. But some things resisted erasure. Emily's mother kept the porch light on, even after the funeral, even after the certainty. It had become habit, a ritual not meant to be broken. Her brother visited less often, unable to reconcile the end of the search with the beginning of grief. They had wanted answers. They had not known what answers would cost. Years later, a true crime podcast revisited the case, stitching together audio from news reports, court transcripts, interviews recorded before time had changed everyone's voice. Listeners reacted the same way they always do. Shock. Outrage. The familiar disbelief that this could happen anywhere, to anyone. Comments filled with hindsight and certainty, with declarations of what they would have done differently. None of it changed the past. Cold cases have a reputation for patience, but patience is not mercy. They wait because they have no choice. They linger because the truth does not hurry. The Emily Carter case became a lesson taught quietly in law enforcement circles. About evidence preservation. About proximity and assumption. About how familiarity dulls suspicion. For Larkspur, it became something else entirely. A reminder that violence does not always arrive loudly. That it can slip in on a phone call, on a knock at a door, on a decision made in seconds and paid for across decades. That the difference between an unsolved mystery and a solved one can be as small as a mislabeled box, as fragile as a partial fingerprint, as stubborn as a mother who refuses to turn off a light. The land where Emily was found was eventually developed. A small commercial building rose where the excavation site had been.
People parked cars there now, laughed,
Complained about traffic. Life continued, indifferent and relentless. Only those who knew looked twice at the ground before stepping forward. On quiet nights, when the wind moved just right across Juniper Road, some residents still remembered the sound they never noticed at first. The one that blended too easily into the dark. The one that had been there all along, waiting for someone to understand what it meant. The case was closed. The sentence was served. The files were archived. But memory does not follow procedure.
It drifts.
It resurfaces. It asks questions long after answers have been given. And in that way, the cold case never truly ended. The years that followed did not soften the edges of the case.
They sharpened them.
Distance has a way of clarifying what proximity blurs, and as time stretched forward, the Emily Carter case began to live a second life, not in courtrooms or evidence lockers, but in memory. Memory is less orderly than justice. It rearranges facts. It emphasizes feelings. It refuses to close files. For those who worked the case, the aftermath arrived quietly. Detectives transferred, retired. Some carried the weight better than others. One admitted, years later, that the case had altered how he knocked on doors, how he listened when people said nothing was wrong. Another said he still dreamed about evidence rooms, about boxes mislabeled just enough to hide what mattered most. Cold cases leave fingerprints on the people who chase them. Emily Carter's story became required reading for new investigators in the region. Not as a triumph, but as a warning. Slides showed the early mistakes, the assumptions, the gaps that took decades to close. Instructors spoke about patience, but also urgency, about how no sign of struggle is not peace, and how proximity can be more dangerous than familiarity suggests. The lesson was clear. Evil does not always announce itself. Sometimes it blends in perfectly. Larkspur tried to redefine itself. Town council meetings avoided mentioning the case. New brochures highlighted festivals, farmers' markets, the charm of small-town life. Outsiders arrived with no context, unaware of the story embedded beneath sidewalks and street names. Locals let them stay unaware. Some truths are shared only with those who already know. But anniversaries are stubborn. Every March, someone placed flowers near the edge of Juniper Road. No name, no note, just a quiet acknowledgement that something had happened there that refused to fade. No one ever saw who left them. No one asked. Some rituals do not need witnesses. Inside the prison, Daniel Reeves settled into routine. Routine erases identity. Days folded into one another. He appealed less.
Spoke rarely.
Guards described him as compliant, unremarkable. Dangerous men are not always dramatic. Sometimes they are simply finished. Then, years into his sentence, Reeves asked to speak with someone. The request was vague. Not a lawyer. Not clergy. A detective. One who had worked the original case. The request was denied at first. There was no legal incentive. No pending motion. Nothing to gain. But curiosity has its own gravity. The meeting was arranged. Reeves appeared thinner. Older. His hair had gone gray unevenly, as if aging had arrived in patches. He did not look at the detective when he spoke. He did not confess. He did not apologize.
He talked about time.
About how long it takes for things to feel real. About how silence grows heavier the longer you carry it. Then, he said something that stayed with the detective long after the meeting ended. People think it's the act that breaks you, Reeves said. It's not. It's the waiting. Waiting to see if anyone noticed. He refused to clarify. The meeting ended. No statement was recorded. No formal admission entered the record. Legally, nothing had changed. Emotionally, everything had. The detective drove home that night with the windows down, letting cold air erase the sound of the words. Some truths, he realized, are offered not to explain, but to burden. Emily Carter's family was informed of the meeting. They asked if Reeves had said where he had taken her. He had not. They asked if he had explained why. He had not. The answers they wanted remained out of reach, sealed behind a silence that even conviction could not penetrate. Grief adapted. It always does. It learned new shapes. Birthdays passed. Holidays arrived. Emily's name was spoken less often, not out of forgetting, but out of fatigue. Carrying absence is exhausting work. The house on Juniper Road was renovated again. New owners. New paint. New locks. The back door was replaced. The old one was discarded, splintered, and broken down for trash. No one photographed it. No one saved it. Objects, like memories, are allowed to disappear once their role is finished. Yet the case continued to ripple outward. A neighboring county reopened 2 unsolved disappearances from the late 1990s. The similarities were faint, but unsettling. Late-night calls. Familiar faces. No forced entry. Reeves was investigated tangentially, ruled out, or perhaps simply unreachable. The files remained open, unanswered, resistant. Cold cases rarely exist alone. They cluster. They echo. Years later, when asked in an interview what the case had taught him, the lead prosecutor paused longer than expected. He spoke about restraint, about how justice is not always about certainty, but about responsibility, about doing the best possible work with imperfect tools, and accepting that some questions will never be answered fully. The interviewer asked if he believed they had found the whole truth. The prosecutor did not answer immediately. "No," he said finally. "I think we found enough." That distinction mattered. The Emily Carter case closed legally on a specific date, with signatures and stamps and finality that looked convincing on paper. But in the lives it touched, it continued to unfold quietly, reshaping trust, altering instincts, reminding people that the most dangerous moment is often the one that feels ordinary. Some nights, when the town lay still, people remembered the sound they had missed. The one that blended into wind and distance. The one that marked a before and after no one recognized at the time. The cold case had ended, but the waiting had not. And perhaps it never would. Part 10 does not begin with a revelation. It begins with silence. Not the silence of unanswered questions, but the heavier kind. The silence that settles after the truth has already landed, after the headlines have faded, after the courtroom lights have been switched off. A silence that belongs not to the case, but to the people left behind by it. A new generation grows up in Larkspur, Texas, knowing the Emily Carter case only as a line in an archive, a paragraph in a true crime blog, a cold case once buried and then suddenly resurrected. For them, the shock is historical, distant, contained. The arrest happened before they learned to drive. The fear feels theoretical. For those who lived through it, nothing feels finished. A graduate student in criminal justice requests access to the original files for a research paper. She expects outdated procedures, maybe sloppy record-keeping. What she finds instead is something more unsettling: competence paired with assumption. Every early decision, every dismissed lead, every delayed search looks reasonable on paper. Logical. Human. No one wanted to fail Emily Carter. No one ignored her out of cruelty. The system didn't collapse, it drifted. Familiarity replaced suspicion. Trust replaced urgency. The belief that this doesn't happen here quietly did the rest. Her paper never sensationalizes Daniel Reeves. His name appears sparingly, almost reluctantly. The focus is on the town itself, on how communities narrate safety and how those narratives can become blindfolds. How normalcy, when protected too fiercely, can become an accomplice. The paper circulates quietly. No viral moment, no outrage cycle, but it reaches training rooms, conferences, internal briefings. Emily Carter becomes a case study, not just in forensic delay, but in cultural hesitation. A lesson whispered from one investigator to another: question the familiar first. Back in Larkspur, storefronts change hands. The cafe, where flyers once hung, is renovated, repainted, renamed. A new wing is added to the high school. Children grow up without knowing why their parents double-lock doors, why they caution against trusting someone simply because they've always been around. Emily's family eventually leaves town. Not in defeat, but in self-preservation. Staying meant living inside a memory that never loosened its grip. Her grave remains tended. Fresh flowers. Quiet visits. The town moves forward, but the ground remembers. Daniel Reeves ages behind bars. He gives no interviews, writes no confessions, offers no explanations. He fades into administrative routine, a name on a schedule, a body in a cell. A guard later says Reeves never made eye contact during count, never spoke unless required, as if shrinking himself might erase what he'd done. But crimes do not shrink. They occupy space. Permanently. The Emily Carter case drifts from public conversation but embeds itself deeper into institutional memory. It's cited during trainings, mentioned during late-night briefings, used to justify a second look, a longer search, and earlier escalation. This is what closure looks like in reality. Not peace, not relief, but vigilance purchased at unbearable cost. And somewhere else, in some other quiet town, on another ordinary night, a familiar door opens to a familiar face. The hope is simple. That this time, someone pauses. That this time, someone looks closer. That this time, a cold case never gets the chance to be born. Part 11 does not announce itself as an ending. It arrives the way these cases always do, quietly, without permission, lingering longer than anyone expects. Years after the arrest, after the sentence, after the final gavel strike echoed once and then disappeared, the Emily Carter case still refuses to stay still. It surfaces in unexpected places. In late-night conversations between detectives who've seen too much. In classrooms where students learn the theory of justice before they ever feel its weight. In the uneasy pause that follows whenever someone says, "This time feels different." Because every cold case, once reopened, leaves behind a dangerous question. How many others never will be? Boxes of evidence remain sealed in climate-controlled rooms across the country. Names typed in fading ink. Photographs taken under fluorescent lights. Lives reduced to timestamps and coordinates. Emily's case was not unique in its details. A missing woman, a trusted figure, a town slow to suspect, but it became rare in its outcome. Most don't get a second act. Most never hear handcuffs click. Investigators who worked the reopening say the same thing when asked what finally cracked it. Not technology. Not luck.
Time.
Time gave distance. Time broke loyalty. Time loosened the grip of fear. Time made people talk. Not all at once, not loudly, but just enough. And time, cruelly, took away the chance to ask the most important questions directly. Daniel Reeves never explained himself. Not in court. Not in custody. Not in the years since. The motive remains speculative.
Control. Opportunity.
Familiarity. A line crossed without witnesses and never uncrossed again. The absence of explanation becomes its own wound, one that no verdict can close. Emily Carter's voice, meanwhile, exists only in echoes. Old recordings. Letters. Descriptions from people who loved her. She is frozen at 24, forever about to become something more. The future she never reached hangs over the case like an accusation. The town learned. Law enforcement learned.
Procedures changed.
Protocols tightened. Awareness sharpened. These are victories, officials say. Progress. Proof that something good came from tragedy. But progress does not resurrect the dead. There is no final shot where the music swells and the screen fades to black with satisfaction. There is only aftermath. Only the understanding that justice, when delayed, arrives incomplete. It answers one question and leaves 10 others behind. The Emily Carter cold case was reopened.
Solved.
Closed on paper. But cases like this do not truly end. They become warnings. They live on in the space between trust and doubt. In the hesitation before believing someone simply because they've always been there. In the moment an investigator decides not to dismiss the strange detail, the awkward timeline, the uneasy feeling. Somewhere tonight, someone will report a loved one missing. Somewhere, an officer will decide how seriously to take it. Somewhere, a community will choose whether to protect its image or confront its fear. Those choices are where cold cases are born. And sometimes, if the silence lasts long enough, they are where the truth waits. Still. Watching. Unfinished. Part 12 does not resolve the unease. It deepens it. Because long after the case file is stamped closed, long after the evidence is cataloged and stored, the shadow of Emily Carter still moves through the system like a low-frequency signal, barely audible, impossible to ignore. Detectives who never met her speak her name, without realizing it, when they pause over a detail that feels wrong, when they push back against the pressure to wrap things up cleanly, when they choose doubt over convenience. This is how a cold case survives its own ending. In interviews conducted years later, investigators admit something they never said on the record at the time. The arrest didn't feel like triumph. It felt like exposure. Like someone had lifted a floorboard and revealed how long the rot had been there. The shock wasn't that Daniel Reeves had been capable of what he did. It was how close he had always been, how ordinary he seemed, how easily everyone, professionals included, had accepted the version of reality that required the least disruption. Reeves remained silent. Not defiantly. Not theatrically. Just silent. His refusal to explain becomes the final unanswered question, and perhaps the most honest one. Motives are comforting. They create distance. Without them, the crime sits too close to the surface, too close to the idea that this could have happened for no reason anyone wants to name. Emily Carter's story continues to circulate in fragments. A podcast episode here. A training slide there. A footnote in a policy review. Each retelling strips away a little more drama and leaves behind something colder and sharper, a warning without embellishment. Missing does not mean gone. Familiar does not mean safe. Time does not mean mercy. Her family rarely speaks publicly now. When they do, they avoid the language of closure. They talk about memory instead. About vigilance. About the responsibility of the living to notice what feels off and act before silence sets in. They know better than anyone that waiting is not neutral. Waiting is a decision. In Larkspur, people still argue about when the case truly ended. Some say the arrest. Others say the conviction. A few insist it ended the night Emily never came home. But there are those who believe it never ended at all, that it simply changed shape, embedding itself into the town's instincts, its hesitations, its quiet rules about locking doors and asking follow-up questions. At night, the streets look the same as they did in 2001. Same lamps. Same intersections. Same stretches of road where nothing appears to be happening. That's the most unsettling part. The setting never warned anyone. It never does. Cold cases are not defined by time. They are defined by delay. By moments when something could have been done sooner and wasn't. By the thin space between suspicion and certainty, where people choose comfort. The Emily Carter case crossed that space and paid the price. Now it exists as a pressure point in the collective memory of law enforcement and communities alike. A reminder that the most dangerous assumption is that the worst has already happened somewhere else. Because somewhere, right now, a report is being written. A detail is being dismissed. A familiar face is being trusted one more time. And somewhere else, a file is waiting. Unlabeled. Unfinished. Cold. Because even now, even after years of analysis, procedure, and hindsight, the Emily Carter case refuses to settle into a single meaning. It resists being packaged as a victory or a failure. Instead, it exists as a tension, a reminder stretched between what was known and what was assumed, between what felt safe and what never was. Late at night, in offices lit by desk lamps and computer screens, detectives still pull the file. Not because they expect to find something new, but because something about it feels unfinished. They read the same interviews, the same timelines, the same early decisions that once seemed reasonable and now feel fragile. The file does not accuse. It simply waits. Every cold case does. There is a moment, buried deep in the original investigation, that no one can quite let go of. A small gap in time. A window measured in minutes, not hours. A stretch where Emily Carter should have been visible, reachable, accounted for, and wasn't. That gap is where the case truly lives. Not in the crime itself, but in the pause before anyone realized something was wrong. That pause echoes. It echoes in dispatch calls taken more seriously now. In missing person reports escalated faster. In officers who knock twice instead of once. These changes are never announced. They are absorbed quietly, shaped by cases like this one, where delay proved fatal. Daniel Reeves will never fill that gap. His silence ensures it. Whether his refusal to speak is guilt, control, or emptiness no longer matters. The truth he carries died the moment he chose not to share it. What remains is consequence, for him and for everyone else who must live with the absence of explanation. Emily Carter remains defined not by how she died, but by how she vanished. By the suddenness of her absence. By the way her life ended not with noise, but with quiet. A quiet that lasted years. A quiet that taught a town and later a system how dangerous silence can be. This is the final reality of a cold case reopened too late. There is justice, but it limps. There is truth, but it arrives incomplete. There is closure, but it never fully seals. The case leaves behind no comfort, only responsibility. Responsibility to notice the detail that doesn't fit. Responsibility to question the familiar. Responsibility to act before time becomes an accomplice. Somewhere tonight, someone is driving a familiar road. Someone is expected home and isn't. Someone is hesitating, wondering if it's too early to worry, too early to call, too early to make a scene. Cold cases are born in that hesitation. The Emily Carter case survived long enough to be reopened. Many won't. And so the story does not end with an arrest, or a sentence, or a name carved into a headstone. It ends where it always should have begun, with attention, with the refusal to look away, with the decision to act while there is still time. Because once silence settles in, it does not leave easily. And it remembers everything. Part 14 arrives after everything that was supposed to be said has already been spoken, and that is precisely why it matters. Because when the story ends, when the microphones are turned off and the file is returned to its shelf, what remains is not narrative but residue. The kind that seeps into decisions, instincts, habits. The kind that does not announce itself, but alters behavior in ways no one can fully trace back to a single cause. Years after Emily Carter disappeared, long after her name stopped leading headlines and started appearing only in training manuals and footnotes, a detective in another state hesitates over a missing person report. The facts are ordinary. Too ordinary. An adult. No signs of struggle. Last seen with someone familiar. The kind of case that once would have been logged, delayed, deprioritized. The detective thinks of nothing in particular. No specific case. Just a feeling that waiting is a choice. He escalates, pushes, asks again. The outcome is different. This is how cold cases speak after they're closed. Not through answers, but through pressure. Emily Carter becomes part of that pressure. Not as a symbol, not as a slogan, but as a quiet weight behind thousands of unseen moments where someone chooses to act sooner rather than later. Where doubt is treated as a signal, not an inconvenience. In Larkspur, the town rarely says her name now. Not out of disrespect, but because it has learned that repetition can dull meaning. Instead, her presence is felt in small, almost invisible ways. A neighbor checking twice. A teacher calling a parent sooner. A patrol car lingering a few minutes longer than protocol requires. No plaque marks these changes. No ceremony acknowledges them. They exist in the margins, where real prevention lives. Daniel Reeves remains where the system put him. Time continues its work on his body, if not on his conscience. His silence persists, and with it the final reminder that understanding is not guaranteed. That some questions do not yield to persistence or punishment. That motive, so often demanded, is sometimes the one thing that never arrives. The absence of explanation forces an uncomfortable truth into the open. Closure is not something the system can always deliver. Sometimes all it can offer is containment, a stopping of further harm, a line drawn too late, but drawn nonetheless. Emily's absence continues to define her more than any detail of her life ever could. Not because she is forgotten, but because she is remembered correctly, as someone whose disappearance revealed the cost of assumptions, the cost of comfort, the cost of believing that danger announces itself clearly and early. It rarely does. Cold cases are not failures frozen in time. They are processes interrupted, stories paused at the worst possible moment. When they reopen, they do not simply resume, they expose everything that happened in the gap. Every delay, every doubt dismissed, every instinct overridden. The Emily Carter case exposed a gap wide enough to swallow decades. And yet, in that exposure, it left something behind. A vigilance that did not exist before. A discomfort with easy explanations. A refusal to let familiarity stand in for safety. This is not redemption. It is consequence. Somewhere right now, a case is unfolding that will never make the news. A decision is being made that will never be credited to Emily Carter, or to any cold case at all. It will simply feel like the right thing to do, at the right time, without hesitation. That is the quiet aftermath of a story like this. No final words. No clean ending. Just an enduring pressure against silence. And the understanding, carried forward without ceremony, that the most dangerous moment in any investigation is the one where nothing seems wrong. Because that is when time begins to work against the truth. And once it does, it never stops on its own. Time has moved on in visible ways. New roads cut through old neighborhoods. Businesses rise where empty lots once held candlelight vigils. Technology advances, policies update, names change. On the surface, progress is measurable. But beneath it, something quieter persists, a sensitivity to absence, a sharpened awareness of how quickly normal can fracture. The Emily Carter case exists there now. Not as a headline, not as a shock, but as a reference point embedded in instinct. It surfaces when an officer hesitates before closing a report, when a dispatcher asks one more question, when a supervisor decides the risk of overreacting is smaller than the cost of waiting. These moments are never attributed. They don't come with acknowledgments or footnotes. They simply happen, shaped by cases like this one, where the difference between action and delay proved irreversible. Emily herself is no longer described in detail. The specifics have thinned with time. What remains is the outline of a life interrupted, a presence defined by its sudden removal. She is remembered less for who she was than for what her disappearance revealed. About trust. About assumption. About how easily certainty can masquerade as safety. Daniel Reeves remains a fixed point in the story, but not its center. He occupies space, serves time, fades from relevance. His silence, once frustrating, now feels inevitable. Whatever explanation he withheld no longer holds the power to change anything that matters. The damage is complete. The lessons extracted at a cost no explanation could refund. Cold cases, when reopened, do not restore balance. They tilt it. They force systems and communities to confront the fragility they preferred not to see. They leave behind a kind of vigilance that is both necessary and exhausting, a constant awareness that the familiar deserves scrutiny, that quiet does not equal calm. The Emily Carter case taught that lesson slowly, over years, through absence rather than action. It proved that the most dangerous crimes do not always announce themselves with violence or chaos. Sometimes they arrive wrapped in routine, carried out by people who blend in, protected by the collective desire for things to remain uncomplicated. That desire is powerful. And it is costly. Somewhere tonight, a light stays on a little longer. A call is made sooner than it once would have been. A report is taken seriously without needing justification. These changes are invisible, but they matter more than any verdict ever could. This is the true legacy of a cold case reopened after decades. Not closure, not comfort, but awareness that lingers. The story does not resolve into peace. It settles into responsibility, into the understanding that attention is not optional, that time is not neutral, that silence is never empty. Because once a case goes cold, it does not simply wait. It spreads. It teaches. It warns. And if those warnings are heard early enough, somewhere, someday, a story like this one will stop before it ever begins. Part 16 does not announce itself as the last word. It lingers, the way truth often does, long after everything else has moved on. By now, the Emily Carter case exists in layers. To the public, it is a solved cold case, reopened, prosecuted, archived. To law enforcement, it is a reference point, a quiet benchmark against which judgment is measured. To the people who lived through it, it is neither solved nor past. It is something that reshaped the way time feels, stretching certain moments until they never quite release their grip. There is a particular cruelty to cases like this. They do not end in chaos. They end in paperwork, in routine, in the slow normalization of something that should never have been normal at all. One day the case is everything. The next it is a box on a shelf, labeled neatly, slid between others just like it. But boxes do not contain memory. Memory leaks. It seeps into decision-making, into hesitation, into the uncomfortable awareness that certainty is often constructed after the fact. That in the moment, things are rarely clear. That the line between safe and dangerous is thin enough to disappear without warning. Emily Carter disappeared in that thin space. In the interval between trust and doubt. Between familiar and suspicious. Between she'll be fine and we should call someone. That interval is where the case truly lives and where it continues to do its work. Daniel Reeves will spend the rest of his life defined by a single set of actions he refuses to explain. His silence no longer feels like defiance. It feels empty, as if whatever drove him mattered only to him, and even that has since eroded. Time strips meaning from everything except consequence. Emily's absence, by contrast, remains full. Full of implication. Full of lessons learned too late. Full of a future that exists only as speculation. Who she might have become no longer matters to the case, but it matters to the people who still imagine her walking through a door that never opens. Cold cases teach a hard truth. Justice is not a moment. It is a process stretched across years, sometimes decades, often arriving damaged by delay. It answers questions but does not undo harm. It provides accountability but not restoration. And yet it matters. It matters because every reopened case shifts the landscape slightly. It changes how seriously the next report is taken, how quickly resources are mobilized, how willing someone is to challenge the comfortable explanation. These shifts are invisible. They will never trend. They will never be celebrated. But they are the only reason stories like this are told at all. Not for entertainment, not for closure, but for attention. Attention to the detail that feels wrong. Attention to the absence that feels too quiet. Attention to the moment when waiting starts to feel easier than acting. Because that is where cold cases begin. The Emily Carter case reached an ending on paper. In reality, it dissolved into the systems and instincts of those who inherited it. It became a warning without a timestamp, a lesson without a headline. And somewhere long after this story stops being told, someone will act sooner than they otherwise would have. They will not know why. They will not say her name. They will simply refuse to ignore the silence. And that, quietly, is where this story finally rests. Because even after everything has been said, written, archived, and absorbed, there remains one final truth that cases like this leave behind, a truth that resists comfort and refuses neat framing. The Emily Carter case did not end because it was solved. It ended because time decided it would carry the weight no longer. And time, once it moves on, never looks back. What remains is not the crime itself, but the vacuum it created. A space where certainty should have lived. A space filled instead with caution, with second guesses, with the quiet understanding that the world does not warn you before it changes shape. That danger rarely arrives as a stranger. That familiarity is not protection. The town of Larkspur will never return to the version of itself that existed before 2001. That town only survives in memory now, preserved in photographs and anecdotes, in the way people describe how things used to feel. Safety, once assumed, is now something measured, questioned, tested. That shift is permanent. Emily Carter's name will continue to surface, long after those who knew her are gone. It will appear in footnotes, case studies, quiet conversations between professionals who understand that prevention is built from the ruins of past delay. She becomes part of a lineage of absence, one voice among many that collectively changed how silence is interpreted. Daniel Reeves, meanwhile, will continue to exist in a narrowing world. Walls, schedules, repetition. His refusal to speak no longer frustrates anyone. It simply confirms what the case already proved. Explanations are not owed. They are not guaranteed. And they are rarely satisfying. What matters more is what happens outside those walls. Cold cases do not just belong to the past. They reach forward. They influence decisions made by people who will never know their names. They sit quietly behind instincts, shaping reactions in moments that never make the news. A report taken seriously. A search launched early. A hesitation overridden. These are not dramatic acts. They are ordinary ones. And they are exactly where the story ends. Not with resolution. Not with peace. But with awareness. Because the most dangerous myth any community can tell itself is that the worst is behind it. That tragedy has already chosen its place, and it will not choose again. The Emily Carter case dismantled that myth quietly, over decades, without spectacle. And now it stands as a reminder that the line between a missing person and a cold case is thinner than anyone wants to believe. It is measured in hours, in assumptions, in moments of hesitation. The story leaves no instruction manual, no checklist, no promise that attention will always be enough. It offers only one thing, the understanding that silence is not neutral and time is not kind. Once something goes missing, the clock does not wait. And once silence settles in, it does not announce itself. It simply stays. Watching. Waiting. Cold.